I'm going to show you dynamic DNS updates against Active Directory and using an app connector to push them. So I'll just refresh this. This is my DNS on my Active Directory domain controller. It's got DNSSEC enabled, but by default you need to have an authenticated connection to be able to update DNS. And so that's what's happening in this packet capture. This is just a standard Windows desktop doing a ipconfig/register DNS. So it looks for the start of authority and it tries to do a dynamic update, and it gets it refused because it's unauthenticated. Goes off and does some stuff in the background. It gets this tsig key or it queries and it registers and it gets an answer. And now it says, okay, do the dynamic update. Here are the 2 IP addresses on my machine, and this is the security credential, and it says, okay, that was valid. And so now it does a reverse lookup for 192.168.1.71 to check that it actually got the answer back, which is this one. It's a pointer records to the FQDN, and it does the same thing for the second IP address. And it gets the answer there. So it's in kind of under a second, 0.11 of a second, although these things are linked local. It goes off and registers the IP and then checks that it's registered correctly. So all well and good. What do we want to do with an app connector? So no Kerberos ticket. It's all based. This specific one is based around Kerberos. There are other ways to do it, of course. I've generated a Kerberos configuration file. All that's basically done is said, hey, welshgeek.net, and this is the realm. These are the domains against that realm. So you can just take a standard parameter and build this. And it's saying look up the KDC against DNS, and that basically does the DNS SRV lookup for _ Kerberos_TCP.welshgeek.net. So if I do a kinit mryan welshgeek.net, and you generally use a service account for this, but I couldn't be bothered to create one. I now have a Kerberos ticket. So now if I do nsupdate -g and I say my zone is welshgeek.net, and I say update add remote.welshgeek.net 86400A 110.10.10.10 and click send. It's gone off and sent that update to the domain controller. And so now if I refresh this page, I now have a machine registered called remote.welshgeek.net at 10.10.10.10. And so from a machine, I can do dig, well, I don't need to do at remote.welshgeek.net, and I will get 10.10.10.10 back. Why am I demonstrating this? So if we want to have a server initiated connection to a client, that server wants to resolve that client, it's going to do it against DNS, and the DNS doesn't know anything about remote clients as far as they are with ZPA. So if we give a remote client a synthetic IP, we know that we can do the synthetic IPs as an app segment, 164. Blah is the client. If we know those client mappings, we can then trigger something on the app connector, an app connector, or a process, which then pushes the DNS update into the customer's directory. So any device, server trying to initiate connection will be able to resolve it, and then that can route through the cloud connector that can do something with it. And basically what that means we're doing is, if you think about a machine on network, it registers its IP address with DNS. If it's on a VPN, it registers its IP address with DNS. This is doing the same thing with ZPA. It registers its IP address with DNS, but it's not the client itself, because the client never gets an IP. It's a process that sits in the cloud that does a synthetic IP to map to the device's FQDN, and then we push that into the customer's DNS as part of our registration process. Hope this is useful. Mark at scalar.com.